Hi, you all. Let's talk about escaping the pleasure trap. This is day 5. Welcome. And so day 3, what we did was we went over the pleasure trap, the motivational triad, the fear trap, toxic shame, and we talked about self-sabotaging patterns. Now we're going into how to overcome the inner critic and now to how to overcome the pleasure trap with consistent habits. This is how you get out of it. It's consistent functional habits over a prolonged period of time. That's easy said than done. Let's go into how you actually are going to do that. So we're going to beat this to a pulp. We want your subconscious to know when you wake up in the morning, it's input, output. If you're doing the same thing that you did yesterday or the past 5 years, or past 10 years or 20 years, you're going to be the same person. That's how it is. If you eat the same food, you're going to have the same ill effect. If you eat the same toxins, it's going to come out in that form. If you're not going to move, your body's going to get stuck. If you think detrimental or self-sabotaging thoughts, that's who you become. So what we want to recognize is the habits have to change. The mindset has to change. Your movement and nutrition has to change if you want to become a new person. And so if you don't want to become a new person, don't worry about it. You don't have to change anything. But everybody here, I'm assuming, wants to become the best version of themselves, a functional version of themselves, a creative version of themselves, a person who is deeply happy, satisfied with life. Stages of transformation, we're also helping you remember this. What you don't know, you don't know. So you can't be assumed to be able to all of a sudden have all the right information after you go to bed at night. Nope, doesn't work that way. If there was dysfunction in your life, that means there's going to be dysfunction until you figure out that it's dysfunctional and then find out the functional pattern. And then you practice that functional pattern over time. This is where people kind of stop, is because they don't want to put the effort in or they get tired of trying. We're here to tell you, don't give up. When you find a functional pattern, stick with it. Certain functional patterns are in the design of the body. And so structurally, we know when you feed it certain foods or you move it a certain way, the body starts to feel better. When you take toxins out, it starts to think better. And so this is the objective, is to find the right patterns and then to repeat them over time. The motivational triad, the fear trap. What is it? It is the evolution of how we're designed. That's why it makes it so hard, because you're trying to fight your biology, your evolution. But it's important to recognize that by evolution, we were designed to seek pleasure. Not in the sense of how we're seeking pleasure in today's society, where, there's dopamine rich hamburgers and French fries and sodas and cigarettes at every corner store. And avoid pain. We're not being chased by lions, but we also don't want to work out. We don't want to feel emotional distress. We don't want to feel any pain. We're taking ibuprofen every chance we get a slight headache, and conserve energy. So we're just sitting on our couches. We're ordering Uber Eats. So this is a recipe for disaster. Modern age is unfortunately keeping us trapped in this evolution. So the longer you've practiced it, the output's going to be the same. So what you want to do is lean into this. You want to postpone pleasure, especially the pleasure in today's society. You want to lean into pain, to emotional pain, into physical pain when you go to the gym. You want to be able to use energy in order to transform. And this is going to take a bit of a skill set to learn. How do you combat the evolutionary system by postponing pleasure, leaning into pain, and using energy? It's not going to be easy, but it can be done with discipline. So we're going to talk about that. This guy right here is the dopamine monster. He is the culprit that has also made sure we survived, but also keeps us trapped in these dopamine activities, these dopamine rich activities, where the brain gets hijacked into wanting more dopamine. And so this is ultimately where we have to escape this, because the longer we've increased the threshold of dopamine, the longer it is that we find regular activities or regular situations so dull and boring that we don't find any enjoyment in it. So we keep seeking higher dopamine rich foods, dopamine rich activities. And so somehow we have to quiet this down. Here you got the dopamine monster whispering to us that dopamine means you're doing good. So this is an assumption that we made, that dopamine is a good thing all the time. Instead, what we don't recognize is this culprit is whispering in our ear to keep getting more dopamine. So we want you to first off meet, this is the chemical structure of dopamine. Dopamine structure is neither good nor bad. It just is. It's the body's way. It's a universal currency for motivation. It's what keeps us moving, keeps us pushing forward. For craving, keeps us going towards those pleasure-seeking activities. And it's our drive, what keeps us pushing at work and keeps us, excelling in our careers and our education. And so dopamine is a really important molecule. However, when it gets hijacked by the brain, it turns sinister. It turns into something that we have the opposite end of dopamine is pain. So every time you hit a dopamine activity, you graduate, you get married, there's a lull after it, which causes pain. Or every time you eat that cupcake, as soon as you have that bite, there's this slight bit of pain, which gives you the sensation to eat more. So this is an evolutionary system, again, not designed to be living in these current social systems that are designed with pleasure everywhere and pain avoidance. So just recognizing this system is how we can escape it. Love is another way that we can both, use it as an opportunity to, feel good, but love also itself can turn into an addiction. And so recognizing, when your dopamine is no longer balanced for you and it's turning into an addiction is where we need to recognize, especially when it comes to food, dopamine rich food. And what basically it works in the sense of food is that it's what calories are. So calorie rich foods, sugars, oils, and salt rich foods, they're really low in calories, but it triggers to the brain. They're high in calories, and it triggers to the brain that, hey, eat more of those things. That's why like fried chicken and French fries, the brain thinks it tastes so good because it's like those are where the calories at. You're gonna survive with the calories here in the oils, the fried foods, the processed foods, and the meats. Versus if you look what 500 calorie looks like for fruits and veggies, that fills up your whole stomach. There's not much room to keep eating more once you're full off of fruits and veggies or potatoes, beans, and rice. But again, our society is not built off of whole food plant-based meals. It's built off of fried foods and meats and cheeses. And so the brain becomes hijacked. And so what ends up happening is we're no longer even looking for these foods anymore because the brain's like, I'm not going to survive off of fruits and veggies. All the survival is in the boxed foods and the cheeses. And so anytime we do eat these foods, it's sending a message to the brain that we don't want that food. Again, calorie density sheet here. Veggies is about 100 calories per pound. Fruits and veggies, 300 to 500 for wet starches. So what we want though is percentage of our diet to be 90% of these foods because you need as much as you want. But as long as you have that dopamine monster telling you that these foods aren't good, you're not going to enjoy it. And so you're not going to make the choices. You're going to keep going towards the meats, the processed foods, the breads, the sugars, the dry food. And so these are the foods that, should be about 10% of our diet. So first and foremost, input in. If this is not the way we're eating, this is a functional pattern to foster. And our programs go over 40 days of how to reprogram your brain long enough, reprogram the circuits to dopamine fast or to fast long enough so that way your brain can reacclimate to this. So a whole food plant-based diet is the front end of this chart. It's how we want to eat. Again, we've flipped it backwards. And so diseases and dysfunctions and hypertension and diabetes comes when we're eating on this opposite end of the chart. It creates sclerosis in the arteries. It creates diabetes. Too much salt creates hypertension. Nutrient deficiency creates all cascade of anxiety and depression and mental and physical ailments. So our foundation of input in when it comes to overcoming the pleasure trap, it starts with nutrition, the food that we are eating. Okay, so we're going to go through how do you escape the pleasure trap? There is no shortcut for this. So listen closely and take notes. Authority over self. You have to develop self-discipline. I wish there was a pill I could give you that would help you wake up in the morning and go grocery shopping and meal prep and have everything situated. We're not here for shortcuts, and I'm not here to tell you, that that is an option for you. And so what I'm going to go over now is the next step, which is to create a schedule. Creating a schedule helps you to determine what is the most priority of your day. You have an idea of the old you is going to try to automatically fire off and do the same thing it's done for the past 5-10 years. However, the new you, the motivated you, is going to create a schedule, and the schedule is going to have how you're going to eat, how you're going to move, what you're going to avoid, the boundaries you're going to take. So creating a schedule is one of the most important things you can do to overcoming the fear trap and the pleasure trap. Priority. So again, on your schedule or somewhere, you want to write what your priorities are for the day. You want to make sure that you are prioritizing the number one thing, which is nutrition and movement. And then you want to make sure that you have all the other steps in place for avoiding the fear trap, for getting out of the fear trap and the pleasure trap, as we're going over today. So a dopamine fast, that means that what we want to do is we want to create and cultivate a system and a way of being able to exit out of the pleasure trap by getting our dopamine levels back to regular state. And so we can do this by avoiding all of the dopamine rich events. I know it says Xing out of fun, and we don't mean you want to completely X out of fun, but what we do want you to do is we want you to acknowledge that, you know, when we are pleasure seeking or dopamine seeking, that the brain is now running off of a machine. So a dopamine fast is, over a period of time, is going to balance out your dopamine levels. And so that means, you know, instead of going to, you know, a party every single night of the week, you might go once a week. Or instead of having coffee every night every day, every time you wake up, you might have coffee or skip it every 3 days. So what we're trying to train the brain to do is how to get that dopamine level back down. Then you want to associate dopamine release from friction. That means that you want to create an association that effortful activities, meaning like you going to the gym and receiving the benefits of working out or eating right, is going to be the dopamine that you're seeking, instead of having a cup of coffee, jamming out in the gym and going to the gym and getting this dopamine hit every time from the caffeine and the music you're listening to. You're getting your dopamine from a workout, or for showing up and reading the book that's going to help you achieve your business, or being able to resist activities that keep you trapped, like going out with friends and drinking. Those are dopamine releases from friction. And this is a way that you can escape the pleasure trap by associating, knowing that effort and work is going to also be associated with a feel-good experience down at the end. Intermittent reward schedule. This is like what I said earlier. So when it comes to fun, you want to intersperse it. You don't want to just constantly feed yourself dopamine-rich activities, you know, 24 hours a day. Again, lowering that threshold of dopamine is how you're going to be able to retrain the brain to be able to escape that pleasure trap. Recognizing that the society that we live in is not built off of a balanced system. It's built off of evolutionary of keeping us in that trap. Means that the discipline that we create is going to help us get our dopamine levels back to normal. This is how you overcome that evolutionary system. And then we use fasting, juice fasting, water fasting, depending upon comorbidities. You want to have a doctor fast, doctor supervised fast, ideally, if you're not going to be eating anything or having anything other than water. But juice fasting is a great way to take out all of these dopamine rich foods and getting your body back to a state of balance, getting the taste buds to reprogram themselves to find regular whole foods tasty, instead of jonesing for salt and oils and sugars, is what happens when you eat these processed fried foods, or fried foods and oil rich foods and potato chips and things like that. is after you take it out of your system, and I'm talking, for a 2-week juice fast to a month at least, and then transitioning to a whole food diet, it takes several months by study, what the studies show, in order to finally get that dopamine level down. But once you get it down, you are master of your biology, meaning that your neural systems, your chemical systems are not running the show any longer. So this also looks as an elimination diet. You just take out all the fried foods for about 3 months is the recommendation. If you can't do 3 months, try it for a month. But you're going to just take out all of the foods that come out of boxes and bags. You're going to try your best to eat a whole food plant-based diet, minimizing meat, minimizing processed meats, and just eating as clean as possible for a month. Again, getting that dopamine level down. Salt, oil, and sugar, these are the culprits. The systems that we live in are built off of these basic additives in order to keep us jonesing and craving for more. These are the culprits, really, because there's so much oil, so much calories in oil that the brain doesn't recognize. A tablespoon or so is triggering my brain to be like, I want more of that thing, because that's where all the survival is. Same thing with sugar. It just triggers your dopamine. It's the same as cocaine in studies that show it triggers the same part of your brain. Salt, again, is just an additive, which is in everything. And we've become so adapted to the taste of it, not recognizing that salt raises our blood pressure, it eliminates, healthy bacteria. So you want to avoid these three as much as possible. Go towards a whole food plant-based diet for a month to 3 months is our recommendation. Our 40-day program will help you stay on this for a long enough period of time that it changes your taste buds and it starts tasting good. And a little bit of accountability helps. So you want to be able to, meal prep and create the meals recommended in order for you to not fall off the track. If you don't have a meal ready, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to go to the donut in the break room. Or what you're going to end up doing is you're going to eat the burger that your coworker brought for you at work, instead of being able to say, nope, I'm fine, I'm eating this food. So meal prepping is a huge benefit. Stay away from drugs and alcohol and cigarettes and anything that's going to trigger your dopamine. This is really important. 40 days is the optimal number of days to start. However, we say just take this out of your diet completely. Input in, output. If you're putting in dopamine rich events like this or toxins in your body, it's going to be the same output. We know this is not going to be easy for so many individuals who've smoked their whole lives, who really love their alcohol and wine. But coming from a health standpoint, we want to let you know that this is a major factor in cellular dysfunction. Meditation is how you manage your stress. We want to make sure that you understand that stress means cortisol and adrenaline increase in your bloodstream, triggers your heartbeat to increase. It sends blood to your extremities, decreases the blood flow to your prefrontal cortex, eliminating, healthy judgment. And what ends up happening is that we associate our stress with all the other fears in our lives, and we can't discern the difference. So keeping your body in a peaceful state by meditating and holding your awareness or moving your awareness away from stress states is how you can also override this dopamine system. Because when you trigger a fear response, the brain's looking for survival and all the places it's used it in the past, in the foods, the cigarettes, the alcohol. And so you want to make sure that you're keeping a parasympathetic state. And you can do that by doing deep breathing to reduce stress. This is a great method of overcoming anxiety and stress by dropping into your breath. This takes a while to develop. Our programs are designed to help you learn how to deep breathe as well. We really, really reinforce things like cold showers and Wim Hof breathing as methods of reducing stress. Consistency is the key. You have to do this over a prolonged period of time with discipline. It's not something that you do for a week or a weekend and then all of a sudden expect to be out of the pleasure trap. It takes some time. That's why individuals go on 40-day fasts and they come out of it eating foods that they hadn't eaten before, that they love eating. And so we want you to know that this will take a time to establish a reprogramming in your neural cellular system. But once you do so, you'll be able to recognize that you feel better, you think better, and your body is in a state of clarity and health. this is how you get out of the pleasure trap, you guys, you all. And so we hope that you practice these fundamental skills and habits at the onset of trying to overcome the pleasure trap. Be consistent, get an accountability, join our 40-day program, and that will help you to make sure you stay on board. Our program is proven to help people get out of those systems that you've been in for decades. And we assure you, with the tools for growth, in this section, you're going to be able to really manage to get out of that pleasure trap. Thank you guys so much. Click the link before if you haven't already to join the course, and we will see you on day 6.